We are very fortunate to welcome our first keynote speaker today, Dyane Smokorowski. Dyane was, just to give you a sense of who she is, she was at the hotel down there and then drove around campus for an hour in order to get here to be able to give this talk. Dyane was the 2013 Kansas Teacher of the Year and is currently serving as a pre-K-12 instructional technology coach in the Andover Public School District in Andover, Kansas, where in that role she supports 300 teachers in effective technology integration and professional development. Mrs. Smokorowski wants her students to develop a love for learning, communication, and technology, but to also understand how to use those passions to advance their futures, as well as in the global community. Please join me in welcoming Dyane Smokorowski, Mrs. Smoke, for her presentation, Making Magic Happen for Students. Dyane?
Howdy, hey, friends. Yeah, this is the good end of laryngitis, just so you know. And I am excited to be here today. All righty. We're going to reconnect here in just a moment. We should be able to move without it if needed. But top of the morning to you. Is it a beautiful day at KU? It's always a beautiful day at KU. That's true. That's true. And as you said, I'm Mrs. Smoke. I should tell you that I'm married Smoke. I get to be Mrs. Smoke, and then there is Little Smoke. And Little Smoke just graduated from high school 2 weeks ago. And he's going to Wichita State. I'm sorry, but it's in the neighborhood. So he's going to Wichita State, where he wants to study aerospace engineering, as he's always just wanted to be a guy who works for NASA. So I'm like, hey, this is a great place to go. And what we're going to be sharing with you today is a little bit about myself and then how we can make magic happen in the classroom. And for myself, I'm very passionate about global connections. And for those of you who know me, you already kind of know that piece of it. In 2015, I was invited to go to China as an ambassador from the United States to China and talk to them about how we use technology and how we use creativity in the classroom. It was an amazing experience. As I was going through schools, I discovered something that was very interesting, where we often have 28, 30 students into a class. Some schools are at 40 into a classroom. The students in China were looking at about 65 to 70. And they were in very long rooms. And the teacher sits up at the front with a headset because the room isn't big enough for her voice to carry or his. And as he spoke, the students were, taking furious, copious notes, and they were repeating things that the teacher would say. The teacher would speak, the students would repeat. Teacher would speak, students repeat, and it kind of went on and on and on. And the students started to kind of fade away a little bit. But they were so dedicated to the education that went with that is not only did they take education all day long, in the evening they took Biology 2, Biology 3, and work all night long to get ready for the tests, to be excelling to the next level. And then I come back to Kansas, and I go back to a high school business classroom, and they wanted to talk about international business. And I said, let me tell you about the dedication of the young people in China to excel. And let's look at the situation where you are. How many of you want to make a lot of money? Guess how many of them raised their hand? I said, how many of you want to work hard at it? Guess how many of them raised their hand? Not as many, right? So we had to put it in perspective just a little bit. And I said, but here's what's different. Here in our schools, we're focusing on the creativity of what you can do with that content. You can master content, but until you know what to do with it, that's a whole different level of innovation. And that's what the Chinese wanted to know. And they wanted to see what it is that we do here to spark that imagination. How many of you recognize the light bulb moment with students? Isn't that why we get into this job? I call that teacher crack, because I'm completely addicted to it, right? And in a little kid's world, how many of you are elementary or come from the elementary world? Right, who's primary, the pre-K through third grade? What does the light bulb look like in your world? It kind of sounds like this, whoa. And that's even with my voice, it's whoa, you know? And then in middle school, it kind of, you know, they're like, huh, that's the sound. It goes, huh, yeah, that's kind of cool. And in the high school, it kind of get the head nod, you know, sort of thing. But I look for that so much in my classroom. And so that's what I went to China to tell them about, is those light bulb moments. And from that point to my friends in Kenya that you see here, these are folks who work in an orphanage in the Kimbera slum. They have about 300 students to their class or to their school. It's a K4 building, and this whole room is about 4 times the size where they work. And they are very much a 21st century school. They have just a couple of computers, and they connect their children to the world to share their culture with other people. And it's magic. So I'll share with you a couple other things. And I'm also this nerdy teacher. As you heard, I work with educational technology pretty much in and out all day long, all night long, and I probably need an intervention how much I love it. And I used to work for the Disney company. So that's where you see a lot of those magic connections as well. And I answered really hard questions when I worked for Disney, like what time is the 3 o'clock parade? And do you work here? I'm like, no, I just wear mouse ears for fun. Okay, so I do, but that's a different thing. But again, I really want to bring the magic. That was my job at Disney, is all of us, our cast members, were to bring magic to people every day. And magic is not the, bring the magic wand so much as it was to help them reconnect with that inner magic, wondrous look in the world that children have. And I think that's why I became a teacher, is I wanted to see that every single day. And I want that for all students. These are my kids who this year now will be seniors. But for me, they're in 8th grade forever, right? How many of you see your former students and go like, no, sweetheart, you're only 6? Baby? No, that's impossible because, I'm taking you to recess in 10 minutes. But these are just a few of my students. And you can see that it's a different classroom. We go outside, we lie on the floor. We do a lot of crazy things. But I want this for all students, including big students. Now I work in professional development, and this was my classroom yesterday. How many of you would like to be in this classroom? We were doing photography in the classroom, and so we took them outside, and these are a couple of my teachers. This was yesterday. We were doing STEM challenges, and I don't know if you've seen these, but these pink things are called straw bees. Has anybody heard of straw bees? Okay, they're genius. They're from Sweden, and they're another tinker toy kind of tool, but they are straws and little connectors. This thing right here is a straw bee. And it's a die-cut little plastic piece to connect straws and build structures. So this is a fairy tale. Can you guess what fairy tale this is? I can help you out. This is a fairy godmother with a very big magic wand. These are 4 mice. What story is this? This is Cinderella. This is the carriage for Cinderella, and she's riding in it. Is what this little bitty set of Legos are in here. So we were doing STEM challenges. And this was 2 days ago. And this is our high school band teacher over here on the right-hand side from Andover High. And we were doing DU Inc. green screen activities where we were making him very large. I should tell you, he's right about 5'2", is our band instructor. Now he is the Jack in the Beanstalk, or sorry, he's the giant in Jack and the Beanstalk. And then these are a couple of people like from the story. We were showing green screen. So we try to make magic all the time. Who'd want to play in a classroom like that? Oh yeah, we have fun. But why do I teach? Because it's more than just making magic. I want students to become change agents for the world. And I'm curious to know what your students are passionate about as well. Do you have students who are passionate about video games? Okay, Little Smoke is one of those. He probably needs an intervention as well. But passionate about video games. And how many of you think students waste a lot of time in video games? Be honest. Yeah, a lot of them do, right? But what if they were to make video games that teach other people how to make a change in the world? Maybe. Do you have students who are passionate about photography? You know, they're kind of doing this all the time with duck faces. Do you have those kind of kids? I wonder if they can make photo essays as a social justice piece. Maybe. Do you have students who are passionate about beauty? You know, they're kind of the ones that are petting their hair when they talk to you. Do you have those? I have one. She would talk to me, I'm not kidding, friends, on syllables as she spoke. Mrs. Smoke, I have a question. And I'm like, really? What? You know? But what if I were to connect her to people who were doing sustainable fashion for change? Maybe she would be tapped into something that would bring passion and change together. Do you have students who are passionate about superheroes? All right, look at a friend. Tell them your favorite superhero. Do this now. You know you have one. Favorite superhero? Superman? Superman? Superman. Yeah, that's a good one. Superman. Who's a Superman friend? Who likes Superman? I just like the way he stands, you know? Superman. Who likes Batman? Oh, these are the dark Gothic friends. Those are the ones in the room. All right. Who's all about girl power, Wonder Woman? Don't you just want to fly in that jet? I want to fly in that jet, you know, and have that, you know, I want the bracelets. I want to do that. But can kids be superheroes? Absolutely. They can change the world. I talked to the New Mexico Teacher of the Year 2 days ago from 2013, and she is a high school French teacher in Las Cruces, Mexico. And it's just very, very close to the Mexican border, southern New Mexico. And she wanted her students to do a passion project for change and teach other students French. So her students were going to work with an orphanage and a women's shelter in Haiti. And through a lot of research, they found out that what they needed the most were sanitary napkins and tampons, which is kind of an interesting thing, but she said it's a very taboo subject, and we all kind of get that little cringe when you hear those words, so you understand that. After doing a lot of research, they found out that even if they sent those items to Haiti, that the odds of the students and the people needing them to get them were extremely slim. So they readjusted, problem solving, and found that there was a local community shelter for women who needed these same resources. And through that, the partnership of raising all of these donations, and I should tell you it's a high poverty school, not only did they make a change for their community, but these children will be volunteering at a homeless children's preschool this summer, teaching them French. Kids can be superheroes. Do you believe that? I do too. So that's why I teach. And I'm a big passion project Genius Hour believer. Who has never heard of Genius Hour? Never heard of it? Okay. So what Genius Hour is based on the Google's 20% time. And it's not a Google invented thing. It's just been around for quite some time. Actually, it's been around for over 100 years. But in the Google environment is they give their employees 20% of their work week to work on a passion project. What do you want to know about? What do you want to learn? What could you change to make our company better? That's how Gmail was invented. How many of you are Gmail users? Me too. Let's hear it for passion projects, right? That's how the selfless or the self-driving car is being invented by a passion project. Who's curious about these? How many of you know an elderly person or a person who cannot drive because they don't have the physical ability, but it would change their world to have that independence again? Yep. I have an 87-year-old granny, and she does not need to be behind the wheel, friends. She's hilarious. I love her, but she can't see over the steering wheel. Love that lady to bits, right? But now she doesn't have her independence. She's got her mind, but she doesn't have her independence. So maybe that would be something for her. So what does it look like in the classroom? Well, this year we had a 5th grade student who wanted to research superhero women. I was excited about this. And her passion project was U.S. Army Surgeon General Nadia West. and she wanted to know everything about her. That was her passion project in January. Well, the teacher also gets magic. And notice that this child who truly did not have a lot of structure in her life, I mean, she's kind of the story that we all pray over when we go home at night, or we want to bring those babies home. She's one of those. She says, I've got to make a way for her to meet her superhero. So the teacher started writing emails to the U.S. Army, sending tweets. She went for 3 months to try to find this connection, over 55 email strings. And just before school ended, we held a Skype call with Nadia West, and this 5th grade girl was able to interview her superhero for over an hour, and the entire 5th grade class was involved in it. Kids can change the world. And if she can connect to somebody that will also inspire her, do you think this child may have a passion for a new career herself? It's possible. And our freshmen, high school students, were doing service learning projects with Passion and Genius Hour. Not only they had to find something they were curious about, they had to do something for change. And one of the students wanted to research color theory, which I thought was interesting. And she looked at the classrooms in her high school and said, all of these classrooms are boring in design. Do you know schools that are boring in design? So she said to her high school English teacher, I want to make a change in this classroom. Will you let me build a mural? And the teacher contacted me. He says, I don't understand these passion projects. Can you come help me organize this? I said, sure, that's what I love to do. Let's help make some magic happen for these kids. So we helped her make a blog and helped her document what she was doing. And she rounded up some super friends to do that, because superheroes also need super friends. That's why the Avengers are awesome. And she got kids who aren't even in her class to volunteer and help put this together. So you notice we have the dark colors over here with Edgar Allan Poe. Do you see how that correlates? Just a little bit. And then as she moves over to the colors that are brighter, she goes into Shakespeare, which I thought was interesting because he also has some very dark faces. But she was thinking Midsummer Night's Dream was very whimsical and so much ado about nothing and so forth. And she also did some research on feng shui. So she balanced the classroom and brought color to it. Isn't that wonderful? And it's over 7 feet tall. That's awesome. If you are very curious about Genius Hour projects, I encourage you to explore 20time.org or geniushour.com, because you can explore some magic for your students as well. And I'm also excited about social media. How many of you are on Twitter? Me too. It's kind of genius stuff, isn't it? And I found out that the more that I'm connected into technology, 2 things have occurred. One, I have less patience with it. How many of you have no patience with technology because it needs to be faster? That's me. And you can take my TV away. I unplugged the cable. I was like, good, let it go. But don't unplug my internet. I need to have it. And when my internet slows down at home, hoo-wee, that's like, talk about first world problems, right? It just can't handle it. How many of you are the same way? Yeah, but I also found out that there's more crazy, wild people like myself out there. How many of you work in schools where there's one teacher who teaches one subject and he's all by himself? Yep. What do you teach? What does she teach, Scott? Chemistry. You are the chemistry teacher? How many of you, is anybody else a chemistry teacher in here? You're the only chemistry teacher in this whole room, friend. Let's hear an awe. Do we love her still? Give her a hand. We still love her. Okay, but are you on Twitter? Do you find other chemistry super friends? Do you have Avengers? Does she need some Avengers? Yes, so that's why we connect. And that's why I'm starting to teach my students how to use Twitter in their own environment. But I don't jump them into Twitter right away, friends, because they just kind of do that on their own and it's kind of frightening. Would you agree? So I'm going to give them some digital citizenship skills before we get there. And I have them do Twitter in analog form first. So they were doing research on Mark Twain a few years ago when I still had my babies, but we still do things like this today. And I had them do research on who he is. And you know, he was a wild guy, Mark Twain. How many of you have studied Twain? You know his wild side, right? He was a little ornery. And you read Tom Sawyer, you know he's ornery as a kid, right? So as an adult, he ended up, he liked to hang out in the saloons. He went out west. He was in a couple of almost gunfights at dawn, duels, but he decided to run out of town before that happened. And we started to see where they could capture the voice of Twain. And so, you know, he grew up in Hannibal. So one of the students wrote, Hannibal, Missouri is where it's at, friends. That's where I want to be. Or I only look good in white suits. Where does that fact come in? What did he wear a lot? White suits. I came up from nothing and now I'm top of the world. I'm living the American dream. You can hear Twain saying that, couldn't you? Or I've had my face put on more things than George Washington. Did you know back in the day he had his own pencils, his own scrapbook? You could even have his own printing press. It failed miserably, but he gave it a go. Who was hanging in everybody's classroom in the 1860s? What photo was hanging? What portrait? George Washington, most famous American at the time, so he was kind of like the first mass marketing producer. I'm pretty sure that's where George Lucas was inspired by Mark Twain, right? Before he did Star Wars. And today I have them still connect, but we do it as a whole class. This last year, as our fifth graders were studying the American Revolution, we set up a classroom-to-classroom Twitter chat on the American Revolution and what it means to live in a free world. It's kind of interesting. We had classrooms from New England. We had classrooms from Western Kansas. We had classrooms together, and we would post a question out and ask them questions like, what does it mean to start a nation from scratch? Kind of a hard question for fifth graders to answer, right? We threw the question out as a graphic on Twitter and asked other classrooms to respond any way they wanted to. Some of them created polls, some of them created artwork, some created video documentation. They popped it out there on that day, and we had kids from all over the U.S. talking together about America. Is that awesome? Now, how many of you are thinking I let kids use their own accounts for that? We didn't. We used the teacher accounts. And the teachers became just the megaphone for the students to communicate. And I'm starting to see this more often. Who would like your kids to talk to other kids? Come on, who would like it? Yeah? It's coming, and it's happening. And yes, we're passionate about photography as well. Again, my baby's all dressed up here. And we have them use it to create human comics to retell stories. And we did that this week with my adult learners as well. But here is a scene from Tom Sawyer. And what you see here is Alana is there in the front. She is playing the dark Injun Joe, the bad guy in the book. And this is Muff Potter, who's been knocked out. She's just killed Doc Robinson. And back here are Tom and Huck. What we had the students do is they divided up the chapters. They had to debate who was going to do which chapter so that we all didn't have this going on at the same time. And I wanted them to pick 3 scenes from that chapter that would be important, that they determined it was important. Now, I have to tell you that in chapter 6, that is where Becky marries Tom. And that's just in the classroom where she kisses him. Guess what my girls wanted to do? I need to be in that one, Mrs. Smoke. It needs to be me. And the boys were kind of like, I don't really think so. They weren't involved in it. But what would happen is that groups of classes, of teams of students would say, well, we need to do chapter 6 because we have this certain costume and this is what we're going to do. This is the vision that we see. And they'd have to debate it in the classroom. And another group of chapter 6 were like, we need to do that because we want to do that plus this, plus this, plus this. My friends, they were fighting over homework. Best teaching day ever. Because they were improving it without me having to prompt them. Genius, don't you think? And this is what they came up with. We take the photos, they were using their cell phones, we put that into a Google slide, and then these are insert, shape, call out. And then they just add the text to it and a summary. What we ended up was with the entire book done in photographs. We printed it off, and now we have a comic for us to go back and reread the book. How many times do you think they delved deeply into the text? More than once? Absolutely. That's what we want them to do. And we also do art. How am I doing on time, Cindy? Great. We're doing great. We're good. Okay. I want you to copy these down, friends. Copy these lines down. This is a project I do every year called Squiggles of Awesome. You like the name, don't you? Or Awesome Squiggles. You copy the lines down. Now I want you to finish it. What do you see? Do you see an animal? Do you see water? Oh, and you can rotate it. Turn your paper. Do you see something different if you turn your paper? Sketch it out. Go ahead. You're going to have to share it. Go ahead and sketch it out. See what you see. And we're going to call this flash art. So you're going to do it really fast, okay? Don't feel bad if you don't feel like you're an artist. Scribble. These are just squiggles. Make more squiggles. It can be abstract. That is okay. Oh, we're having conversation. All right, show somebody. What do you see? Show somebody near you. Tell them what you see. Okay, how many of you saw animals? Who saw animals? Who saw whales? She saw a whale, I loved it. Who saw an elephant? Do you see him here? Here's the trunk, comes down through here. I always see the elephant, that's what I see. How many of you see water, making this like ocean? Would you like to see what the students saw? Isn't that awesome? That's why it's called Squiggles of Awesome. Same 4 lines that you had. It's just been rotated. That short squiggly line is over here, and the trunk is sitting up in this area. And then it's a candle with smoke for that top swirly line. Here is a Down syndrome student who built a house. And this is a person sitting outside of his house. Isn't that awesome? I can't, there's no other word. It's just awesome. And here we have Jack Skellington. These were students in Andover. And this is students in China. Now we have a cultural conversation. Look how we went from full bleed to purposeful lines and purposeful empty space. I love the fact that it's dreaming of fish, the cat. Did you notice that before? And her hair, isn't that amazing? Very clean lines. Also from China with a little bit more of the full bleed color. But this is an ocean scene. The horizon, a small boat here, and this is your island in the bottom. Squiggles of Awesome. We run this every year. We put 4 lines up on a webpage, and the website is awesomesquiggles.weebly.com. We run these purposely in March and April during state assessment time because we think our children need to have a way to decompress, even though some of them feel very stressed about testing. And why not? It's just thinking fun, right? And then we connect them to another classroom around the world to share their artwork. Just like you shared with someone across near you, we have them share via Skype. And they share their artwork with other kids. This is third grade, and they can use any of the art medium they wish. Here is colored pencils, where this one did watercolors. Watercolors, that's that stuff you get in elementary school and you only get to use once a year, even though your mom buys a new set of paints every year. You can share it. That's magic. Would you agree? And we also take virtual field trips. We go to virtual places of national parks. What's the big celebration of national parks this year? It's the 100th birthday. How many of you had fourth graders? Did you print off the park passes? For your stepson. Did you know that every fourth grader can print off a free park pass this summer to go to any national park? That's awesome. And we found out that it's in Hot Springs, it wasn't free, it was a discounted price. So I thought it was wah-wah, but they can still use it. So we actually Skype with these places. All of these do for free to your classroom. Yay. And to national monuments. Historical battlefields. The Brown versus Board of Education will Skype to your classroom for free. We do ecology things. What is the big deal about the elephants this year with the Ringling Brothers? They're retired, right? They retired on May 1st. All of these elephants now are at the Elephant Conservation Center in Florida, and they Skype to your classroom for free. And we did this with the Down syndrome students right after they retired, and the elephants get on the call. They bring the iPad, and they said, boys and girls, do you want to see the tooth of an elephant? Who'd want to see a tooth of an elephant in here? They took the iPad in the mouth of the elephant so we could see it. Those kids were lit up. It was magic, not only for them, but every para, every administrator that was in that room. And the elephants would do tricks based on what the kids would do on the call. It was magic. I have a list. If you have a device, you want to snap a photo of some of my favorite of these virtual field trips, these are the ones for the primary grades with a link to get to those. I'm going to update it with the elephants and a couple of more before the summer's over, so you can snap that for later. And I'll give you a second. For those of you who are 3 through 12, these are primary. 5, 4, 3, 2, secondary. That's you. You want to grab those. One of my favorites, I've not done it, but I always wanted to, but I'm very passionate about giving it a go, is with the Candles Holocaust Museum. There's a lady there who was a survivor of Mengelé's twin experiments. And she will Skype classrooms. 8th grade classes often study the Holocaust. Would that be a powerful experience for them? Most definitely. The information is on that site for you. Okay? 3, 2, give him a shot to take it, and we're done. Okay. How do we do this? How am I doing on time? How am I doing on time? Cindy? 2 minutes. Okay, hurry. Okay, so for this one, how do we do this? We start thinking of a unit, and we brainstorm any possible opportunity to make that happen. So if I'm doing the Civil War, I'm thinking what national parks, what interpreters could I Skype with, museums and so forth. We just make a brainstorm list. And from there, I reach out to them in Twitter. I go to their websites to find out who they are. Now, this is a super skill you need to have, so I'm going to walk you through this. You guys know how to Google, right? You guys know how to Google, right? Okay. But how many of you need, like, superhero Google skills? All right, I'm going to show you this one. So I take in a job. Actually, let's go in, like, urban farmer. Because we have little kids who do communities, urban, rural, suburban. What if they were talking to an urban community, but talking urban farmers versus rural farmers, right? So I type in the job, and then I put in site twitter.com. By adding that site, I'm telling Twitter that I'm only telling Google I only want to work at Twitter and nowhere else. So I add that little piece to it. Trouble is, this is everything that's ever been on Twitter, so now I need to go one more super skill. I'm going to click on Search Tools, and I want to see if they've been on here for the past month so I can tweet out to them. Now I've got Red Deer Urban Farmer. And now I have an organization to connect. And look, here we have a website. I can jump onto that spot, and they all have a Contact Us button, do they not? Yep. So that's how we begin. And then from there, we have a script that we use to connect with all of them. And if you want to snap a photo of this one, here is the script for you to copy and use yourself. We'll make that big so you can see it. There you go. You can just copy this, tweak it for yourself, and then make it customized for yourself. We do the pitch script. You need to Skype with us for 15 minutes. Help my kids Skype to learn. Help us connect. Help us see what your career is so that we are passionate about your careers and maybe have new ideas for ourselves. And I'm going to jump over all this, but my final thing is this for you. Do you dream big for your students? Do you dream big? Because if you do, your kids can do big things. They can change the world. And keep this in the back of your mind. What do you want them to remember when they are 40, not just for that test on Friday? Because those forever moments are the magic. And if you dream big, big things can happen to you too. So thank you very much. And I hope to connect with you again later today for some more magic. Oh yeah, we can answer questions. What questions can I answer for you? Yes, question. I want my information. Oh, and I should tell you, when you look for me on Twitter, make sure you find the underscore Mrs. Smoke, because the other Mrs. Smoke without one, she's into recreational medicinal herbs. So you want to make sure you get the underscore. I'm not kidding. I'm also followed by Mrs. Weed, but I'm pretty sure she's confused. So it's all good. But if there's any questions, I'm glad to answer them, like how we connect or things like that. Yes? I use a Logitech 920C. It's a webcam you can get from Amazon for about $60. It's high definition and it's widescreen, so all the kids in the room can be seen. And it's in a teacher's price range. It has a microphone built into it, so it works perfectly. I also spend an extra $6 for a USB connector, so we can stretch it out and move around the room if we need to. Yeah. Right. So it's a USB extender for $6 plus the $60 webcam. How many of you work in a very large room like this or a library? For you, I'm going to recommend that you also add in a Yeti microphone. It looks like the old 1940s things. It'll pick up things from way in the back of this room. It'll do a beautiful job for you. Yes. What other questions? How many of your wheels are just turning with possibilities? That's what I want to see. Okay. If you have any questions, just holler at me on Twitter. Thank you. Yes. I'll put it up for everybody. Thank you.
Well, what a great